Hello, hello. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a great webinar planned for you. It's all about AI from the end user perspective, and we're focusing today on user adoption and change management, which I think is a really important topic that I personally have not heard enough about. I have not heard people talking about this enough. And it's really essential to the success of AI within an organization. So before we get too far into it, just a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to cover. First of all, we are going to keep this high level today because this could easily be, we could spend a month straight just talking about all the ins and outs of this. There's so much to it. So we'll keep it high level in the interest of time. But if you do have any questions or you do want to continue the conversation afterwards, I would certainly encourage you to reach out and schedule some one-on-one time with us. Always happy to help. Our goal is to support you in your success. Additionally, we do want to hear from you today. So if you have any questions, don't be shy. Use that question box. We've got it on the right side there of GoToWebinar. Just punch your questions in and we'll be happy to answer those for you. And lastly, yes, I do see questions coming in already. Great. This will be recorded. Yes, this will be recorded. So we'll be adding this to our YouTube channel as well as our website. If you've registered for this webinar, we'll also email it to you. So you'll have the complete recording to be able to review afterwards. So no worries there. Now, with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and introduce today's speakers. First of all, my name is Krista White. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Crow Canyon Software. And we are going to be hearing today from Scott Restivo. He is our CEO and AI automation leader here at Crow Canyon. And also Chloe Rutan from Amexio Group. And she is all about change management and she's a user adoption consultant. And additionally, we are also joined today by James Restivo, who is the VP of Operations here at Crow Canyon, and he'll be fielding questions for us as well. So we've got a great team for you here today to really dive into this. So without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and hand things off to our wonderful CEO, Scott Restivo.
Okay, Kristen, thanks for that introduction. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to dive right into it. Crow Canyon's been doing business process automation on the Microsoft 365 Teams SharePoint platforms for many years. And we provide these tools to companies throughout the world so they can accelerate their business processes and modernize whatever they're doing, like using past legacy programs, and they're bringing it into the 365 and SharePoint world and Teams. But what's new about coming in is that with the AI addition, we now call it Intelligent Business Process Automation, IBPA, and that adding AI services to the business process automation tools we have is really a game changer in the sense that it's adding all kinds of new possibilities that we're just really beginning to explore and exploit as AI becomes more and more into the mainstream. Now, we all know that AI currently is in a big hype cycle. I was going to say, has anyone ever heard of artificial intelligence? Like, of course you have. And now there is this, we looked around on YouTube and found all these interesting things. I challenged Chris, I said, is it really that much hype? And she found these ones like AI is going to end world hunger. It's going to bring world peace. You're going to make you millions of dollars. And, I said, yeah, that makes all sense because we're in this point of the Gartner Group's hype cycle of technological innovations, where it starts out with some basic trigger, such as, say, ChatGPT coming out in the fall of 2022, and then it expands into this peak of inflated expectations before it all sort of collapses and goes down into what they call the trough of disillusionment, before it starts to become more mainstream as it goes up the slope to the plateau of productivity. So right now we're in this peak of inflated expectations, and that's relevant for us as we deploy these AI solutions because both organizations and end users have, I would call, basically inflated expectations, as well as the other side of things, which is cautions and skepticism. And, as you go up this cycle, of course, there's the people on the other side who are all the skeptics. Big tech is faking it, AI hype, big tech is a lie. So it's really interesting to look at what's, treating YouTube sort of as the zeitgeist of where people are at in this hype cycle, and seeing both the, it's going to make you millions of dollars and cure cancer, as well as there's a reality check and skepticism going on here. And part of it is that as you hit the peak of inflated expectations, the major corporations as well as smaller ones are prone to hype it up because it boosts their stock price. Maybe they invest their money in, they want to be part of the current trend. But the reason I'm bringing this in here is that as you develop your AI solutions, it's important to realize that there is this hype cycle, there's this skepticism, and how do you bring something in that's really practical and useful to your end users and to your organization without getting caught up in the inflated expectations and then the deflation into the trough of disillusionment. And I was looking around my kitchen, I realized I've got this old Webvan sticker. I don't know if anyone remembers Webvan, but it's actually from like the 1990s, 25 years ago. I got it during some conference, I guess, and stuck it up there. And of course, that crashed and burned during the NASDAQ crash and the early 2000s and all that. And so the inflated expectations have this tendency to go to crash. But then look at the bottom picture here of Amazon, which came out of that, and of course is now one of the major corporations in the world, as well as several others like Google and of course Microsoft and everything that is part of the web. So I'm saying that the web went through that same cycle, starting in the late 90s of the inflated expectations, the web vans, the pets.com. We probably all have stories. And in fact, I've got a set of stock certificates, that are from several startups I worked in at that time over in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and they're worth about the money the paper they're printed on at this point or less, which is kind of funny, but that's what happens in the peak of inflated expectations in the trough. So I've been through this before. Many of us have, who've seen the web come into existence. And this applies to a lot of technologies. And I think it's a very good hype cycle. So the important thing here is to keep kind of a steady and realize that, okay, there is value here. That's why I brought up the Amazon picture here, is that yes, there is value if the right implementation methodology is pursued. And that's what we want to explore and investigate. And the experience of being in this business for so many years is just how to keep that steady hand and look for where is the real value in this new technology and where isn't. So we have this Nitro Copilot architecture. We have this, it's kind of stylized, of course, you simplified, but there's data sources from many formats and many locations that feed into the Copilot mechanics, that feed into user engagement and output. And there is this feedback loop that comes and fosters better answers. Now, in this webinar, our goal is not to dig deep into the data sources and the mechanics, the RAG models, the LLMs, or these two lower layers, how to do all that. Those are certainly incredibly fascinating to me, as well as many other technologist-minded person. And certainly something we could spend a lot of time, and we have done some webinars on already. And of course, we have a lot of discussions about it, but this webinar is really about user engagement, because if you don't have the users engaged, you don't have user adoption. I mean, obviously there's no real point in having it, we tend to, it's like having a car and you're talking all about the engine and the brakes and the transmission, but you're not dealing with the end user experience of, is it comfortable, is it good gas mileage and all that. So what matters to users? That's what's important here. What matters to users at the, at their level, I mean, they may think it's the underlying mechanics are fascinating or interesting, but really what matters to them in their job is accuracy and performance. How accurate is the information? Is it reliable? And does it return these answers and these responses quick enough within, say, 5 to 10 seconds instead of waiting 10 or 20? Is it available on many devices and easy to use? Is it something they can just go to and access quite easily? Is it something where they get useful output and time saved? And I'm sure any of you could come up with other things that matter to users, but it's at that level of ease, comfort, accuracy, not worrying so much about those underlying mechanics, which are, again, they're certainly fascinating, but something that when you're dealing with the AI from end user perspective, that's what you want to consider, what matters to the users. We can have other webinars on the mechanics. We can discuss it, and there's a lot of fascinating stuff there, but this is what we're going to consider here. Now, what matters to the organization is somewhat similar, somewhat goes along, but more like you want to avoid inaccuracies. You don't want to expose private data or confidential data. You want to make sure you don't have hallucinations so that the end users get, hallucinations being, this kind of AI making up stuff that isn't really true. And data exfiltration, meaning sensitive data going out to being shared or exposed to the outside. and get biased or discriminatory responses, and having sufficient access control over the data that's in there. So while the mechanics and the data and all that is very interesting, it's a matter of what is the end user experience and what it matters to the end user and what matters to the organization. So we see that there's basically two critical factors. And of course, there's probably a lot more, but we can summarize it as two critical factors is for success of an AI application is what kind of user engagement. And Chloe will go into that. She's quite experienced in change management and user adoption. We'll get to that in a minute. And then the other part is data governance. How much control do you have over the data? Is there missing, inaccurate, outdated information in there? Is it a targeted data source, or is it an open data source? And we'll go into those things as we go into this webinar and how to deal with these two factors. So if we're talking about user adoption and change management, it's a matter of defining what is the overall goal of this application. What are we trying to achieve? Is it time saving? Is it efficiency? Is there, what is the actual goal we're trying to do here? Who will use it? What's their skill set? What's their experience with technology? What do we have to do to adapt to that? How is it accessed? Is it through a mobile device, the desktop? How do you get to it? If it's on your desktop, is there a link to it? I mean, how is it accessed and how easy is it to use? And what is the impact on your users and organization? And this could be impact on network services, on IT services, as well as on the users. Because AI, and this has been emphasized in a number of the articles and YouTube videos and conversations I've had at various conferences, is that really AI is a game changer. It's a different paradigm. That it isn't like just adding another application. It's really a different way of approaching work. And that is important to consider, that this is kind of a quantum leap. And I use this example of, and I don't know if it makes any sense, but in old age, you had a TV, you had to go turn the knobs, walk up and turn the knobs, and and then you can change the channel. And then one day somebody invented a remote, right? So it's like a whole different way of working with a system. If you see what I mean, it's kind of like a paradigm shift in that way. And some companies will focus on making bigger and better buttons with bigger numbers on the TV. But somebody said, well, wait a minute. There's a whole different way of doing things. There's a remote. You can sit on the couch and click it. So it's kind of like that level of change. I don't know if that's a great example, but I'm trying to say it's like not the same normal thing of just putting bigger knobs on the TV. Now you got a whole different way of working, So, you can sit on the couch and eat your popcorn and, click the channels, right? whole different model. I hope that makes sense. But what I want to do now, before I go too deep into this, is get Chloe on board and
Yes,
talk
hi.
about.
Hi, Scott.
Hi there. Yeah. You ready to show your side of things and
Yes,
talk about
yes,
change
yes.
management and user adoption? Okay,
Absolutely.
take it from
Thank
here.
you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Christy, can you make her presenter?
Absolutely. Here we go.
Thanks. So let me just quickly share my screen. So hi, you guys. I'm Chloe. I'm actually calling in from Belgium, so that might explain my accent. But I actually met Scott at the Collab Days, the Microsoft Collab Days in Brussels. I think it was in the fall, and we just got talking about Microsoft point of view and AI in particular, and then we just we took it from there. We had some nice talks, and then he asked me like, yeah, do you perhaps want to talk about it in a webinar, just get our ideas out there and just inspire people to perhaps take some action. So that's what we're doing today. So let me just quickly present perhaps the company I work for. So we're a part of the Amexio group. It's actually a French company with different locations all over the world, and we're actually specialists in content management as well as for like the customer experience side and as well as the employee experience side. So actually digital workplace solutions. We were known within the Benelux as Amplexor, and then we joined the Amexio group I think the beginning of last year. And we really strongly believe in like customer intimacy, building long-term relationships, and that's why we do like more long-term projects with our clients. So not really the body shopping kind of projects, but really the long-term. And yeah, we have like consultancy services for like enterprise content management, customer experience management, and then more particular, that's actually where I come in, like digital workplace and intranet. So I'm really looking at digital workplace as a whole, and then acting as a change and user adoption manager. Before we'll just dive deeper into the AI and end users and everything, perhaps why user adoption and change management. Let me just quickly explain to you what mostly happens. So imagine this: you're on an island, it's your safe haven. You can imagine this as your digital workplace. It's an application, or your application that's being used right now. And then your customer comes to you and says, yeah, I just want something that suits my needs better. I want to go to another island. It needs to be hipper, it needs to be cooler, it has these new functionalities. So okay, what do you mostly do? You just get a crew together, your project team, your specialists, you put them on the boat, and they start your project for you. So that's actually pretty straightforward, you might think. Yeah, the project continues. You have developed some goals. Perhaps along the way you meet some beautiful mermaid. You adjust your scope, but then all sails towards a new direction, and that's that. So the project team reaches their dream destinations, but then they suddenly realize they are forgetting something. They're end users. They're still stuck on the old island. They have not been informed on changes. Maybe they heard something, but yeah, they still have to adapt or adopt to the new way of working. So the solution, let's put them on a submarine. So you can see the difference here. The crew has already seen everything. They know why they're on that island, and they still have to get their end users. They're put in a submarine, and then they're like, okay, travel, we get to our destination safe and dry. Okay, here are some swimming vests. They still have to swim to the shore, and the swimming vests are actually the life jackets. Are you can consider this training as so they're already there. Here's some training, and you will survive. But what mostly happens? Yeah, I think most of you guys already seen Finding Nemo. Like, just keep swimming. Yeah, and that's actually very often that this happens for our end clients. Now, what's the worst that might happen in this case? You have people that keep swimming or swim back to the old island, the old way of working. Uh, they have their own tools, their shadow IT, and other people just drown. They don't really know what's going on. Or worst case, they abandon the new system all entirely. So that's actually why change management is very important, to prepare everyone for that change. There's a lot of talk about change management and user adoption, and just to clear some things out for you guys, what is change management versus user adoption? You really need both of them. So the change management is actually creating a framework within an organization when talking about digital transformation projects, so that all stakeholders are involved and guided towards a new way of thinking and working. And here the focus really lies on the organization changes. So you have like a change management framework. And for instance, we work with the ADCAR change management framework from ProSci. And then you have user adoption, which is actually part of change management, but these are specifically activities to maximize the acceptance and daily use of new software or technology by the end user. So in this case, the individual is central in this point of view. So the focus here is the individual changes. So you need them both. You can think the user adoption is also like really the more operational activities you do to get everyone involved, and change management is the strategic framework behind it. And so why do they go hand in hand? Well, actually, because an individual change only makes sense if it contributes to the bigger picture. So, and this bigger picture is always the purpose and the objectives of the organization. They need to be in line. Need to be aligned for a change to be successful. So what kind of approach do we do? this is an old way of working. Think about the island and the submarine, and when talking about digital transformation projects. So very often you have like development and testing, the go live, here's some training, and you just expect change. It's not always like this. I think a lot of companies nowadays are more going towards like user adoption, change management specialists that are working within companies, or digital coaches even to help them. But very often we still see this actually with minor changes, perhaps, but have like a large impact on end users. So what was the worst that could happen? Indeed, everything is abandoned. So that's why you actually need a new way of working. And let me just really quickly introduce the PROSA ADKAR framework. I think most of you guys already heard of it. Like PROSA is the largest institution in the world that actually does a lot of research about change management, and they came up with the framework ADKAR. So it's like every letter stands for a word, a phase, and what you need to consider when talking about or implementing a change. So you can, aside from technological changes or digital workplace changes, you can also apply this in your personal life, going on a diet perhaps. So you need to prepare your organization for change in 3 phases, like awareness, why, get those messages out there, create a kind of desire. So what's in it for them? They need to feel the desire to do the change actually. And then here's the training. How do I need to change before the go live? The knowledge, prepare everyone for the change by training them, not only training to install like a network of change ambassadors, perhaps within an organization, to sustain the change. And then you have the go live. By then, everyone already knows, or hopefully knows, what they need to do in the new system or on the new island when you implement the change, and then you go really target those activities to reinforce the new habits to sustain the change. So you can do a lot in these phases. Every company does it differently. So typically in awareness and desire, you really are talking about here about communication messages, all kinds of platforms within an organization. Then you go to your training and abilities, like really installing this kind of support network, an FAQ page, the ambassadors, materials, just to get everyone quickly going into this change. And then reinforce a new habit by perhaps celebrating successes, so people still are motivated to work in the new way. So this is actually like the PROSA ADKAR framework. And interestingly enough, it's not like a linear process, but it's like a cycle. It's possible that somebody goes back a phase, forward a phase, to towards a new way of working. Sometimes somebody stumbles upon a new feature within new software. This person becomes hesitant and still needs to figure out what's in it for them. So this is interestingly enough something that happens within these projects. So you might be thinking, yeah, that's cool, but what value does it bring? What happens without change management and user adoption? And then this is actually a key question you can ask yourself as a company. So how much impact does sticking to your old individual habits have when you're reaching your goals as an organization or your project, versus how much of the available time and budget is being spent to breach these old habits? So you have to make this out for yourselves, but very often you can do change management or user adoption activities with little resources. These are really small activities you can do as a change specialist, or just if you don't have someone in your organization, how you can tackle that is also very interesting to talk about as well. And then you have influence. Change always starts at the top, so you always have to consider reaching everyone. Without change management, you can actually have like this broken change management. It's like a Swiss cheese kind of situation. You need to involve everyone. So organizational change always requires individual change in daily routines. So human factors of change don't automatically reach 100%. Everyone has their own pace, and that sounds really logical. But then again, diving into AI, Scott and I will talk a little bit about that later on. It becomes more difficult. So you have the human factors. Lastly, determining the return on investment when talking about change management. So the speed of adoption, how quickly are people up and running in a new system, processing job roles, ultimate utilization, how many employees are demonstrating buy-in and are using the new solutions, and the proficiency. I think Scott already mentioned this, how well are individuals performing compared to the level expected in the design of the change. So these are things, it's like a SUP, a sub to keep in mind. Change is psychological. It's like in the human nature to give resistance, to not give in. And when someone messes with your morning routine, you become resistant as well. So that's just as a comparison. Then what we like to do within Amexio is like more a pragmatic approach to change management. So you have like employee adoption is always in the center. It's always what's best for the end user. And then we actually begin, here you see at the left, with the discovery phase. We always prioritize and define successes. We need to do an analysis and on the current situation. We assemble a team, and then we begin with our preparation. So everything is always very modular. Nothing is the same in each and every project. Very important is to always create like this baseline measurements. Why? Because later on you can do some monitor and manage your feedback. It's really data driven, so you need to when you have a report out to your most important stakeholders, they want to see changes not only in behavior but also in behavior, but also they want to see the numbers, to see if they have their return on investment. Different phases here, baseline measurement and trade support, like these ambassadors to work towards a sustainable change. And then you have this implementation phase, in which you can activate your ambassadors, give trainings, etc., and monitor and manage the feedback in the nurture phase, celebrate successes. So it's like this loop you're constantly in, and things are really, really pragmatic. So that's actually how we like to approach our change management. Our change management framework within Amexio. I've talked actually quite a bit about this. Perhaps I give controls back to you, Scott, to introduce our talk about AI and what implications we have for the end user.
I don't know, or if he's on mute, it might be on mute.
Yeah, Scott, we can't hear you.
Do you see the slideshow there?
Yes,
yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Chloe. That was great. Good. And it's very important to consider rather than just rush right into a AI implementation without considering all those factors and how it's going to impact the organization and how people might not get to the new island if they aren't brought along in a way that makes them feel encouraged, especially since it's such a new technology. Now, I want to, along with your lines, I'm thinking about prompts and what does the user know what to ask, how they know, if they give them the screen to put in, how they know what to ask, right? And so there was this William Honeycutt, a friend of ours, an MVP, friend of the company, gave this list of these 11 different kinds of prompts. And I looked at it and said, well, it's interesting to me, but I don't expect end users to go through and figure out how to do all these different prompting, and if anyone's interested, certainly he posted this on LinkedIn, William Honeycutt with an U-H-U, oh, I think it's H-U-N-Y, right? I think I have that spelled wrong. No, it's whatever.
Move ahead.
You'll find it. Well, that doesn't matter right now. It's like whatever. But there's these 11 different kinds of prompts. It has these slides describing each one: zero shot, few shot, chain of thought. I'm scrolling through them because I don't. Just like Chloe's saying, end users would be overloaded by all that information, and they're not gonna do that. So instead, what we're doing is introducing this idea of a portal here to them. How can we help you? And at the top, instead of being just a simple search for, say, that we're talking about, say, an HR help desk or an IT help desk, or maybe you're looking up contract specifications or whatever in your documentation, you have a prompt, right? And then this would be like the ChatGPT kind of prompt or whatever, the Copilot prompts. And then you can have a disclaimer under here, which could help. and then you do a search. But at the same time, you want to offer them other alternatives, like maybe a pre-prompt, like you're talking about, in this case, accounting and billing. If HR might be about disability benefits, and this one might be about insurance benefits, and you're kind of like pre-prompting by giving these things, these pre-prompted questions that you can guide the user in a better way than you would. And this is what you see sometimes in the chat GPT down here at the bottom. You have this, tell me a fun fact, design a programming game, kind of the same idea. And of course, the disclaimer at the bottom, but you put in here a message, you put your prompt there, what we call prompts. And I think this screen's a little too blah, that end users, but it does give very practical information. So we're just addressing it up a little bit better. And then what you have going on here at the bottom, and you want to put it's submit a request. It's like pressing the 0 on a voicemail. I can't get through. Just give me an operator. So you can always press the submit a request and go there, and that goes right into the HR help desk or the IT help desk as a request. You want to give them that out, I guess you could say. And then you can monitor that, and you could have metrics or telemetry that says, well, they started there, they tried this chat, and then it ended up submitting a request because the answer wasn't sufficient or wasn't what they were looking for, or they just didn't want to bother prompting it correctly. Now, some people may take on that model of, let me learn some prompts and how to do it better. And, we all learned how to do search, certainly, didn't we? So that's good. Now, it could be other kinds of interfaces. This, whatever suits your company's model. Here's another one that I could, let's see if I got this, bring this over. And it's showing both UX design on the desktop and then a mobile here. And of course, you got anybody out there probably has branding already in their company that would know how to incorporate it into a portal. What we're doing here at Crow Canyon, we have a Crow Canyon portal here, crowcanyon.help. And right now this is a search, and we have a Copilot that goes out and gets information off of the internet. So you can put something in like, how do you implement a Nitro Studio workflow? And it's going to come back and give you an answer based on information that the ChatGPT found on the World Wide Web. Now, there's a problem with that, and I was talking about James earlier, and why we're switching to a Nitro Copilot here and changes this search into a Nitro Copilot, and it has to do with containment of the data, which we're going to get into a little later. James, you want to riff off on that a little bit, if you why we're moving to the Nitro Copilot rather than relying on Copilot, the general Copilot search? James there.
Apologies, I was I muted myself, same as you. Apologies. Yeah, so absolutely. So this is, I think, a good perspective to have for AI in general as it moves forward. And I think this is one of the things where we're going to get past that trough of disillusionment into the path was a path of productivity, whatever that was. Plateau of productivity. We're going to move from the trough to the plateau by using, I believe it's these RAG model AI models, where you're not pointing it to the fire hose of information that has everything out there on the web, which is what you get when you go to ChatGPT or go to Microsoft Copilot today. And certainly if you can go to those tools and ask questions about, well, Microsoft Copilot more so than ChatGPT, but you can go there, you can ask questions about Nitro Studio, how to configure workflows, how to set up forms, and it can give you somewhat okay answers. You can even point it to the specific websites, but it's still going to get things wrong. And I've seen this just in short interactions, 1 or 2 questions, it's getting things wrong because it doesn't know. The LLM, the Copilot doesn't know we're talking about Nitro Studio. It's making its best guess. It's just trying to understand what the question is and what response is going to make the most sense, because it's mostly about that kind of probability. That's the probability is that this is the answer this person's looking for. But that's based on everything across the web. Now, with a targeted model, the RAG model, which is a retrieval augmented generation model, is you're targeting specific information. We're going to build a Nitro Studio Copilot that'll be available on our website, because it's going to point to specifically the FAQs. It's going to point to specifically the manual that we have, and it's going to know these are my primary resources for getting the information and returning a response, not the whole breadth of the web. Now, if it can't answer the question, it can still go out and get information using an LLM like Azure OpenAI or ChatGPT or any of those. It can still reference the web and get some information if it can't find the results it's looking for in the document set that it's given access to. But that's going to be a much better model, I think, going forward for implementing these AI tools and these Copilot tools, is you have this targeted set of information that is more specific to the scenario, specific to the types of requests that are coming in, and will provide relevant results more readily, more accurately across the board. So it goes back to that accuracy of the information that the end users are looking for. And we've done this. We've built out RAG model copilots for customers, and quite successfully. And with 100 to 300 documents, even of course there can be hundreds and hundreds of more. You can get a lot of great information from that. So we did this HR Copilot for a customer. They pumped in all their HR documents into the source, and the RAG model AI, the Copilot, reads those documents and sends back references specifically to those documents as well. And that's one of the big things that you're going to see here too, is those references. And I'll just switch to my screen real quick because I want to show you what that looks like over here. So let me just share my screen, and I'll switch back to you quickly, but I just want to show this because this is took a screenshot of something, and I just did this while we're on this webinar. We have a demo of this. We built it for a specific customer, so I had to obfuscate some of the information in here. But this is a working model, a working RAG model that we developed for a particular customer, and the question was, what's the dress code for this company? And comes back with the specific information from the dress code policy, plus gives you references to where it's also finding its resources. So you see those 3 links at the bottom. You're getting those direct references of what was this Copilot looking at to get this information, and then you can verify it. So going back to the ChatGPT disclaimer, the information might be wrong. You can verify, trust but verify. Is that the famous Reagan quote? Trust but verify. And that's the way we got to move with these AI copilots. In the short term, I think, is trust but verify. Yeah, so that's my little spiel there.
Okay, thanks, James. Yeah, that's really enlightening, and the fact that we, doing this in real life is presenting real solutions. What the challenges are besides the hype. The hype is all about, it's going to do all this, even make your organization run more efficiently. But when the rubber hits the road, we're finding a lot of things to work around that are quite interesting and challenging, and not a problem, but they are something that you have to take into consideration. So let's continue with the slideshow here. If I get this here, okay. James talked about disclaimers, having a disclaimer that could say, hey, this may not be 100% correct. You might have terms and privacy policies you want to deal with. Citations about where you find information, like James pointed out, they could be embedded in the response or at the bottom, like did. But when you do, okay, now we're going to move into a little bit different about data and output considerations, such as what are we showing to the end user, privacy concerns, data loss prevention, exfiltration of sensitive data, bias and discriminatory output, outdated and inaccurate information. So we want to present, James was talking about this a little bit earlier, these or go back to, here we are, these 2 models. This is important to consider whether you have a targeted data set or an open data set. If you have a targeted data set, meaning like James was talking about the 200 or 300 PDFs or Word docs, whatever, that constitute the policies and procedures of an HR department in a large organization. It's a very targeted, it's a very trimmed or defined set of data. It's specific and it's known. And besides, it's already publicly available to, at least to the employees, if not the general public. Perhaps a government agency might make it available to the public, but at least internally, there's no worry so much about sensitive, confidential, or biased data. If that's in there, that's a problem already, and even if you don't use AI. And hopefully if the documents don't have, especially HR documents, I hope don't have any of that information in it. If you do, you better fire your HR lawyer or something. And access would be tightly controlled, because you can say these data sources exist in these specific locations, this file share, this directory, and you can tighten it down and restrict who has creation, update, modifications, and deletion rights. And in fact, the organization we're working with has a whole document management system where they would update these documents in a very controlled process, so that the document, when they revise it, it comes from the 2019 version to the 2024 version of a particular policy. It went through a review board, you might say, a control board, that's going to make sure, okay, now this is ready to be published into this repository of information that AI is reading, that data source. That is where I think we're going to have the most success and ignore, or not ignore, but get over a lot of these challenges of the risks of having an open data source. Because now looking at an open data source, you have a broad-based set of data, and it may contain all kinds of sensitive, confidential, biased data, even inaccurate data, and access control is much more complex. And this is a quote here I got from Nick Ross, another MVP, the T-365. You check out his channel, he's got some really good information on Copilot security. When you talk about the Microsoft 365 Copilot, he say it's going to force people to move into a data governance strategy, which really should be there already, but a lot of times it's not as critical. It becomes even more critical when you put AI and Copilots in here, because AI is going to find the skeletons in the closet, the things hidden in the basement, so to speak, of your data repository, because you may have something you created years and years ago, a SharePoint site or a Teams channel that you don't know who has access to it, or somebody might have added confidential information in there unknowingly, and nobody ever goes there because it's way in the obscure parts of your data system. But AI sure as heck is going to find it and expose it. The other problem with it is that you could have 3 or 4 different versions of a document, and AI will treat them equally because they're just data, really. I mean, it doesn't know which one is the definitive or the master copy. So this data governance strategy is very important. And this comes particularly into play in Microsoft 365 Graph, Microsoft 365 Copilot, which uses the graph, because the graph is going to have access to all your emails, files, meetings, chats, calendars, I mean, everything, because that's what it's supposed to do. That's a benefit in some sense, but it's also a risk and a problem, because now if you don't have proper data governance in place, you're going to expose an enormous amount of information that could be highly confidential and secure if you don't have a really good data governance in policy. Look at this chart of what a graph, graph is all over the place. How do you control all this access and what's being exposed and what isn't? So when I talk about an open data set, I realize MS Graph is not open in the sense of to the World Wide Web, but it's open in the sense that it's not a targeted, defined set of data. It's everything in your Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And if you do have the proper controls and the access controls, and you have a data governance policy in place that you are real confident about, and you have ways of training users to put places, put things in the right place. And maybe you go to the higher levels of the Microsoft system, like Purview and the E3 and no, not E3, E5. I'm not as up on the license as I should be, but I know there's higher levels, and you pay more money and you get better security in there. Of course, you have to implement that security. So there's a lot of risks to go into that open model. You could have inadequate access control that AI finds and exposes sensitive data that, because of we haven't really paid attention to who it's shared with, you suddenly find out that it's been shared in a way that is going to be exposed by AI. There could be insider threats, data exfiltration, where external sharing of confidential data. Inadvertently, AI returns a response and the person shares it on, I'll put that in an email, send it to the customer, and we're not realizing that that data should never have been exposed in the first place by AI. And of course, there's bad actors and hackers. And I want to just point out that I'm putting the breach of system accounts as a major slide here, because really what happens, and you have to realize this, is that AI and Copilots accelerate the ability of a bad actor to steal information, or say summarize all the emails about financial transaction with customer X if it gets into that system account, and it could bring it back in like very short, 5. I mean, still, if you don't have a breach of a system account is critical anyway, but the fact of AI accelerating the ability to do bad, do it quicker, get all that summary out, makes it even more important to
You're scaring us, Scott.
Well, I think there is a reason to have some risk. It's a matter of protecting your data and being sure, and that's why we talk about data governance. And of course, this is not a data governance webinar. It could be a whole webinar in itself. We may actually do it. And there's a lot of really good YouTube videos about how to do data governance, and there's data governance experts. And we could put, we work with partners who specialize in this. They do AI readiness assessments. They do, help your information architecture get together, your access controls. So let's go through this list quickly. I mean, each one could have quite a bit of talk about it. Yeah, I don't mean to scare everybody. I mean, I just want to put a caution out.
I think it's really important when talking about end users. You need to know what they can do and what they're allowed to do, and I think this is a nice opportunity to just clean out your system. they say crap in is crap out. So that's the same with your governance. So yeah, just go on, I would say.
Yeah, it's not only about crap in and crap out, which is certainly important. It's also about sensitive information. First, you have to define what is sensitive data. Well, it may be different for different organizations. Healthcare might be HIPAA, personal information, PII stuff, and things like that. It might be GDPR considerations, privacy considerations, and for a manufacturing company, it might be completely different. This is why it's important to define what is sensitive data, and then where is that sensitive data located? Is it shared? Is it in file places? What document? What is a sharing policy? Because while a lot of 365 by default lets everybody in your organization, have rights to certain files, you have to go more of the more conservative or need to know basis and override the defaults to put in stricter sharing policies. Data classification is quite important. It's most simple. I think Purview uses this, which is public, private, confidential, and highly confidential. And then you have to put these labels, train people to classify the data correctly in what they call a taxonomy of data, so that, public, okay, no problem, private inside the company, but when you get confidential and highly confidential, then you have much more constraints on what can be exposed by AI. Then you have an access control systemized with a request management. And same shameless plug here, but we do have an access request management system that runs part of our Nitro Studio. And we've used this in numerous cases for when there's onboarding a new person, what kind of access they get, mid-boarding, which we mean by a person changes a job in the middle of their career inside your company, and off-boarding. And what it does is it tracks who made the request, when the request was granted, what level of access was given, when does it expire, who approved it, and then you could go back and check, like, who has access to the SQL database, who has access to this file share, who has access to that, who granted it, when did it expire, is it based on their role, is it based on their position? If they change a different job title, does that change it, what they call dynamic grouping? These kind of things could be built in, and that's our access request system. Does that helps facilitate that. So, if you are interested in implementing access request and managing it in a way that is systemized using Microsoft 365, we can certainly help you with that with our Nitro application that does that. Then you have to consider data flow in and out of the organization. I mean, obviously you got to send data out to external suppliers or external partners, but you have to be able to control that gate, that valve. And then the data lifecycle of why, what's your retention policy, what's your destruction policy, what's your archiving policy. And I think that's about the shortest explanation of data governance I could possibly give, because each one of those has many factors to it and can be riffed off on for quite a bit. And makes me think we should do a webinar just on that alone. And bring in some data governance, some of our friends in the MVP community to put that in place. Because really, from doing this webinar, I've realized how critically important it is if you're using an open data set such as MS Graph to expose your data through AI, you're running a high risk of problems there, that can come in with it. Hope that is a good explanation for people, and encourages people to implement data governance, whether you're using AI or not. Yeah, right? What do you think there, Chloe?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm thinking about these data governance policies, they need to be in place. Microsoft's talking a lot about that as well. Like you said, like these AI readiness assessments. I think this differs from country to country, perhaps, and with legal regulations, but I think this is a nice opportunity to just clean out your system. You need governance, user adoption, change management, and governance all lead to the success of a nice digital workplace in which you can use AI or Copilot. Yeah, I think this can really help, like, keeping your system clean, perhaps, and you can even use Copilots to assist you in doing so. So you can use it in your, I think, is it in your purview or in your data governance policy to just to just get these alerts and then prioritize them, etc. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Scott.
Yeah, the idea here is that, like I showed about the web van versus Amazon, that there's plenty of opportunity for very good results if implemented properly. What I say, the right implementation methodology or whatever. And that's really important to realize, that if you only have one chance to make a first impression, they always say, which is that if you put out an AI application, AI tool, and the users are like, I don't know, haven't considered, you didn't consider user adoption, you didn't consider change management, is given, you don't have data governance and all kinds of sloppy stuff's going on, you're going to end up with you definitely into that trough of disillusionment, and the users are going to be like, no way they're going to get involved in that again, like,
Yeah,
I'm
and
going back to that island, Chloe, where it's nice and
yeah,
safe, right?
that's right. Or it can even create like a hostile work environment. People are
Absolutely.
not happy. I think it could be it could be easier just to it could be easier to just do it right from the start, or just take this opportunity before it develops further. Microsoft is bringing out new features each and every day. So
Yeah.
building on Copilot. So yeah, there's that, I think, and then some things are self-explanatory, some things aren't. But the hostile work environment with especially when you're working perhaps with external parties, inviting them in your system, messing it up even more perhaps. So you really need to think about this for your end users. It's important, and I think it's nice to have rules. Yeah.
Yeah, that is good. So the next slide just talks about mischief intent, swearing, excessive chats. How do you control that? Excessive chats, you can limit the amount of chats people can have in a Copilot. And I think another important point is what we call telemetry, which means a continuous cycle of feedback, going back to our original diagram here of where you have data sources, Copilot mechanics, engagement, output, and then return. Now, there's so much more that I could talk to myself for hours. Isn't that a song or something? I talk to myself. I think I heard Miley Cyrus, right? I could talk to myself for hours, saying things you don't understand. I could go on and on because it's such a fascinating subject. It's just, well, I think the real caution here, I think, is to not get lost in the hype of because Microsoft, love them or hate them, they are interested in hyping it up because they want to be leaders. They want to put themselves out,
they
right?
are.
Well, they are,
They have a
yeah.
smart business model. Yeah, they have a really good business model. Also with Copilot, like licenses. It's really pretty as well. The marketing around the entire Copilot and the materials they provide for free to install it, to use it. So yeah, there you go. That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea is that they need, this is, the skepticism in one of those YouTubes I was watching from a Silicon Valley insider, and she was saying that part of the whole goal is to, hype it up so that you raise your stock price and show yourself as a leader, even if you aren't yet, or the tools aren't quite 100% ready. You do want to be out there, but that puts a burden on us as implementers to make sure that we're closing these gaps of data risk, of user adoption, of change management, of making sure how you secure the environment, and that the end users are getting good results. This is the main reason we want to do this webinar on AI from a user perspective, because we get so much from the bottom two layers about the data sources and the Copilot mechanics. And I think James was pointing out earlier is that going this targeted data set model using not necessarily even OpenAI, you could use Claude 3, you could use Llama, and keeping it more open and possibilities of what you can do without having to invest in the Copilots. What is it, $20 or $30 per user per month, and you got to pay for the whole year, and there's all these other levels of purview and security. I'm also, I hate to say it, but a little skeptical of using Microsoft 365 Copilot at that level quite yet. I think it might be a little early, especially if you don't have any data governance in place. And building these more custom-built Copilots, what we call Nitro Copilots, using our technology. And the other thing is we're starting to incorporate agents in. So it's not just like one action. The output could instantiate other workflows or call other agents that pull in information, code interpreters, or other kinds of web searchers, or interact with our Nitro workflows in our Nitro Studio. So we're going a lot of places with this and have the flexibility by building really true solutions using our Nitro Copilot technology. And like James was talking about, the RAG model being retrieval augmented generation, and doing that, because a lot of this is open source. Microsoft, despite its despite its attitude, it doesn't own AI at all. And there's a lot of right. Isn't that important? that you do what's best for your company, not best for Microsoft. You know. So it's an interesting conundrum, and we're here to help you navigate it with us here, also Mexio and other partners that we have. Funny enough, we're getting up sort of at the top of the hour here, right? Yeah. Anything you want to add, James? You want to add any more?
No, I think that's all important considerations. I think this is fantastic content to think about. And as you guys on the call are embarking on your AI journeys, this is all great information to have at your fingertips as far as the whole user adoption piece, and then the different options you have for incorporating AI, and just I think those concerns are valid as far as the data governance and who has access to what. And yeah, it's important to think about. I don't want to scare you off from using AI. I don't want to scare you off from using Copilots, but it is important to think about those things, just like anything else. You want to make sure you set up security to get access to 365 properly with multi-factor authentication. It's simple things like that need to be considered across the board. No,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
this is, yeah. Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, I think that's true. And just that when done right, the output will be huge, also for your end users. And what you're actually talking about here is like future-proofing your organization. So I think that's very important to consider all of these things, and also to be excited about it, perhaps. Like, okay, you guys are doing this. We are able to help you and to navigate you through all of the difficult stuff, because yeah, we as companies as well, we have to build up our knowledge and to become knowledge experts on AI to help our clients, or potential clients, just to work through all of these issues. So thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about this, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you everyone for joining, and thanks Chloe and James and Krista for helping out. I think it's an ongoing conversation that we'll try and put together some more webinars and drill into this further. And I really see it as a community discussion rather than an authoritative person coming in and telling you how things should be done. We're all trying to explore this together and find out how best to implement it. The goal is we want to be like Amazon, not Webvan. We want to crash and burn and have just stickers on the refrigerator 25 years later. That's the only memory of the company, right? Versus it's just success. And also for the end users, the ultimate consideration is the end users. Are they going to get better results out of it? Are they going to see it as positive result of implementing this? Or are they just going to get all skeptical and abandon it, and you're going to have a heavy row to hoe to get them back on board with AI. I think that's the critical thing, right? Once you lose them, they're back on that safe island. You can't get them to go to the new island without a lot more, right?
That's true. That's true. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we're top of the hour, so thank you, everyone. Any more information? We're willing to talk. We're not willing. We're very excited. Would be very excited to talk to any of you directly about your AI situation, your concerns, your interest, and hopefully we can explore this together and meet again, if not in person, at a conference, or have a conversation by email or phone. Then we can do further webinars and keep the conversation going. So we'll let Chloe get some sleep. It's late over there in Belgium.
No, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. I was just about to go for a walk with my dog, so the sun is still shining. It's all okay here.
That's right. That's good. It's right. It's May when the nights are long, right?
Yeah,
So.
That's true. So yeah, actually, if you guys have any questions, just reach out on LinkedIn perhaps, or via Crow Canyon, and then we'll talk some more about these considerations.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
All right.
As
Okay.
well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.